What's up, team? My name is Jordan Berry, and you're listening to the Kaizen Fitness Show. What's up, team? Welcome everyone to the Kaizen Fitness Show, and today I'm super excited because our guest is a love, sex, and relationship coach, and we had a bit of a talk before this podcast, and I think there's a lot of information here that everyone can benefit from. So let's welcome to the show, Olivia Hay.
Hello.
Welcome, Olivia. I think this podcast is going to be super insightful, I think, for a lot of people, given the current circumstance with COVID-19, which is the time we've recorded this interview. But I think a lot of what we can go through today will also be applicable for times past COVID-19 as well. So super looking forward to what we can talk about. And I guess, to start things off, Olivia, let's talk a little bit about yourself, kind of what got you into, love, sex, relationship coaching. It's obviously an interesting topic. I think it's something that interests a lot of people, but what made you want to kind of pursue it as a career option?
I think a lot of things in my life led up to that point, even though it felt like a really weird thing for me to do. Like anybody that knows me now, when they find out that it's what I do, they're like, wow, I never would have picked that. Because I spent like the first 23 years of my life completely disconnected really to my sexuality, and I wasn't in any relationships. And a lot of that was because I felt I didn't realize that I felt that insecure, but I think I just felt a little bit, you receive a lot of messages about sex and relationships and like how a strong woman is meant to be and all of that. And and then when I really started learning about love and relationships and like experiencing my sexuality for the first time, I realized how much there is in the world with it and how much like beauty can be found in it. And so I kind of went on a deep dive. I'm the kind of person that tends to kind of go full hundy into something when I start learning about it. So I guess I just saw how amazing all of it could be, and I just wanted to learn as much about it as I could.
Okay, so you talk about how you like to kind of fully immerse yourself in a topic when you kind of get inspired by it. Was there a defining moment for you where you thought, wow, like, was there any kind of light bulb moment where you kind of discover things that you hadn't discovered before or anything like that went on?
Yeah, I think probably the first relationship that I was in was just like so magical for me, and it was also terrifying because I didn't really know anything about it and about like my body or my pleasure or like what it means to love someone. And I think that was probably the light bulb moment was, when I realized that how scared I was and that I really wasn't being my best person in relationship.
Yeah, that's super interesting. The fact that you've gone from, as you're saying, when people know what you do now, they're like, wow, like, I guess maybe they never saw Olivia as the kind of person that would delve into that, but now you are. So you obviously had this kind of experience where you started to learn about it yourself. Was there a point in time where you can remember where you wanted to start helping other people with it as well?
Yeah, probably the same point that I realized I wanted to learn about it myself. I realized like just how many people must be out there that feel, well, I think a lot of it for me as well was the emotional side of it and how, like going through heartbreak and the sort of ups and downs of loving someone and feeling that sort of shame around the sexuality side of it. And so I think initially really, I think the key that got me to it was actually initially to help other people before I even wanted to help myself. And then I really realized that I needed it just as much as everybody. It all happened quite quickly, and I started doing my training and it was just all go from there really.
Do you think your situation was unique in the fact that I guess you came in touch with your love, your relationship, your sexuality quite late on? Do you think that's a rare occurrence, or do you think there's quite a few people going through a similar kind of scenario?
Do you know what? I don't know. Most of the time when I speak to people about it and they hear my story, they're like, wow, that is like, it is so unique, and you can help so many people because so many people do the exact opposite, and they kind of put all of their sexuality on someone else. And I feel like you can really speak to people in some way about that, but I don't know. I haven't really met anybody else who's had a story like mine, in the sense that it took me so long to really start exploring it. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have gone through many similar things that I have, and even if they are kind of exploring their sexuality, it might not be from a place of like self-love or acceptance or enjoyment. It's more of like a I don't really know, maybe the shameful side of it, or just like trying to find something that they feel is missing. Or
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, and that's something I kind of want to tap into when we're talking about this before the podcast. Is that whole thing about sex? It's like quite a taboo topic. I think over time it's definitely become something a lot more people are interested in talking about, but I think it's such a personal thing, and for that, a lot of people struggle to get help to talk to other people about it because people aren't so much willing to talk about it. I think there's, in everyone's life, there's may only be a few select people where they feel comfortable talking about that kind of stuff, or for some people, that might not exist at all. So, I think the majority of the population has had some kind of sexual experience in their life. Why do you think it's still kind of such a taboo topic to talk about?
I think it's an interesting question because I don't. It's strange because it was so taboo for me for so long, and then all of a sudden I kind of just like my switch flipped pretty quickly, and I went like completely the other end of the spectrum. And now I've kind of come to a point though where I do see it as like it is a really personal and private thing still, and I think I definitely am in a world, like being in this industry, where I see a lot of people every day talking about sex and sexuality, and for me it's quite normal now. But like my nature, I still think that it is a pretty personal and private thing, and like that's okay. But in the sense of I think there's a lot of things that have come from like centuries back when, there started becoming that kind of, I guess I don't know enough about it to say much on it really. Like I wasn't alive back in the day when, you know, the men, maybe used certain tactics to turn a woman's sexuality against her. And like there's a lot of shame that's been happening over the centuries for men and women, and like conditioning and stereotypes. And I think that definitely still carries on in each of us today. But I think, to be honest, I think it's becoming a lot less taboo, and I think it just depends where you look at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that comes from, I guess, there's been more of a feminist movement over the last probably decade, probably more so in the last few years. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because you raised an interesting point when we were last talking about feminism, and it's not so much an attack against men, but more women, wanting to feel more empowered about themselves. And yeah, can you just explain and break down that a little bit more?
Yeah, because I think we were saying yesterday that like it's I think it can feel quite, I guess not an attack on men, but it can maybe feel that way for men when it's like everything it is a massive thing. I think the feminist movement. I think it's a necessary step in the sense that it's gone from women feeling very disempowered and sort of like they're an object of a man's desire or attention. And I think it is a way for them to feel like they're more in control of their bodies by really going fully the other way and saying, this is all for me, which is true and beautiful, but also being able to share that with a man is so beautiful. But yeah, I think for women to really kind of find that sense of wholeness and love and desire within themselves is really amazing for not only them, but also for the men in the world, because then the men can feel safe and we can help men open up with their, vulnerability and their sexuality. Because like, I think a lot of men have the same amount of shame and like conditioning and sexuality as we women do. So, Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it actually made me think of a point too, because when we're growing up, most of us will have parents at home or a parent, or some of us may not, depending on the circumstance. But, as you grow up, when you're young, you're quite impressionable, right? You're kind of exposed to your environments, and we often learn from, the dominant figures in our life at a young age, right? And we may learn certain things, but with sex, it's not something that I guess the majority of people are exposed to in the same way that we're exposed to other things in our life. Now, it's obviously a completely different story for those that have been, exposed to, really bad circumstances in their life. But I think that makes it a hard thing to learn for people. And for a lot of people, it's pornography that they learn from, which obviously, I guess, particularly from a woman's perspective, is not ideal because of the way women tend to be portrayed in pornography. So, that learning process for people, I think it really doesn't help. If they don't have those powerful role models in their life and they don't have that education, I guess you can grow up as a male and a female being quite confused as to, how do I behave in the bedroom? How do I behave in a relationship? It's not really something that's discussed at school, or depending on your relationship with your parents, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, totally. And it, like you saying that too reminded me of like sexuality is not just about sex and being in the bedroom. Like it affects every area of your life, and it's such an integral part of who we are. And I think, growing up and being, it kind of becomes sort of shut. It's like a world that you only show in the bedroom and like not around your family. And it is kind of like, it is essentially shamed. I don't think parents mean to shame it, but it kind of becomes an awkward topic. I mean, it certainly was for me. Like, I remember when my parents tried to, I think one of my parents tried to tell me about it, and I just remember being like, not interested. Like, I have no interest in this whatsoever. So yeah, that's very true. But it makes such a difference. Like, it's such a beautiful thing to explore, and it is such a huge aspect of your own personality and your character. Like, it's your sexual energy really is your life force energy, and it impacts everything that you do, your health and your confidence, and like how you relate in the world and how happy you are and how energized you are. And so to be told that you kind of have to shut that down as a kid can be quite confusing. And I think it leads to, like for me, definitely it led to me feeling quite confused and lost in the world. And I kind of did lack a bit of that confidence, and I didn't realize I did. But yeah, since like exploring it, it definitely, like, it's impacted all the areas of my life, and I just feel so much more alive and like in love with life and myself, and like at peace with myself and my emotions and stuff. Like, it's pretty crazy how like that one thing has helped all the other areas of my life.
That's really cool. Can we just dig into that a little bit more, if you don't mind, Olivia? Like, you're saying how embracing your own sexuality had such a holistic impact on everything else in your life. I think that's something that probably a lot of people may find a little bit confusing to hear that. So can you just discuss that a little bit more?
So I think a simple way of looking at it is that, there's a lot of talk in the world about self-love and really loving yourself. And when like loving yourself is loving all aspects of you, and your sexuality is like one of the most natural and powerful parts of you. And yet there's not a lot of talk about really loving that as we grow up, especially. I think now, there's a lot of people out there that help with this stuff. But it really, like, when you're shutting down and when you're feeling ashamed of that part of you, it's you that you're kind of judging and disconnecting from. And yeah, I think disconnection is a huge thing. Like, a lot of women that I speak to, like, they are quite, like, it's kind of a topic of like, oh yeah, like they're kind of grossed out by their body, and they're not really sure about like what really makes them feel that much pleasure. I mean, a lot of women do, and they're living great lives. But yeah, it is very holistic, and it's like the base of really knowing and loving yourself, because it is such a integral aspect of you. And yeah, when you love it as much as you love all the other parts of you, then it kind of brings together this whole that really fulfills your life. And yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, but it's like sexual energy it really is like in the ancient Taoist tradition and things, like it's known as your life force energy. And when you kind of work with it and you cycle it through your body and you can put it into your creativity, it's all your creative energy, and it can heal your body, and it like energizes, and it does so many wonderful things, and it kind of enhances the love that you feel because it fuels it, and it just fills you really.
Yeah, yeah, that's really key. I think, the crux of what you're saying is that a lot of us are kind of suppressing this natural form and flow of energy, and by doing so, that's kind of affecting how we may put energy into other things in life. So if we're able to, yeah, as you say, kind of love yourself in the form that you don't have to rely on any external factor to feel happy and to feel good about yourself. You're literally just content with who you are. You're not relying on other people's compliments or acceptance. You are literally happy with who you are, and what you're into as a person. That's like the key, you think, to just being happy and being energized.
Well, totally, and also just like the pleasure in your body, and like I think it's still a source of shame for a lot of people, is acknowledging that they have pleasure in their body and that it's actually beautiful to explore it, and like that pleasure is energy, and it also just brings that sort of beauty and health and love to your life. So I think just letting people know that it's a beautiful and natural part of you, and that it's yours to explore and experience, and like what an amazing thing to be able to feel that in your body.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Olivia. And I want to talk a little bit more about this later on in the podcast, but I just want to segue into the current situation now. At the time of recording this podcast, we are still in lockdown here in New Zealand, but parts of the world, it's incredibly fragmented as to where everyone is. So when talking about the self-loving, kind of investing in yourself, working on your confidence and that kind of thing, there's a lot of people in lockdown at the moment who are alone, or who are without a relationship or a sexual partner or whatever it may be. In this time, particularly when we are so fragmented and isolated, how important do you think physical human touch is and how it affects us as humans?
Well, I think it's always so important. Like I think they've done all those studies on how human touch is actually integral to survival of humans, like as babies particularly, but I don't think that changes as we get older. And I think it is a really hard time for a lot of people who are living alone and who probably feel like they can't get that from anywhere, because no one really tells you like give yourself a massage or but you can do all of those things. But yeah, touch is so powerful, and it's like so key for people, feeling that bond and connection, and like feeling like they belong in their community or with their partner or just in life. And all the oxytocin that it brings, like it's definitely an important, powerful, and really beautiful thing. And yeah, for the people that are alone, like just I think really acknowledging that it's beautiful to want that from someone else, and it's so natural and it's human, and like it is, a requirement for thriving really. But yeah, just really taking this time, I think, to learn and explore how to do that for you, like like starting a self-pleasure ritual or a practice, and just touching your own body and like self-soothing in whatever way you can, because it really does have not the same effect, but it's just as powerful as having someone else do it, I think, especially when it's the only option that you have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we will focus particularly on the individuals who are living alone without anyone else. Okay, so for those people who aren't able to get any kind of human touch from anyone else, who are living by themselves, or even in this time just can't physically touch anyone else, what would be your guidance then? What would be your suggestions on how they can kind of still get that same benefit that they may be missing out on?
I mean, I guess it's an amazing opportunity really to really look into, what really makes you feel good, and what kind of touch do you like, and just like exploring it with your own hands. And you can make it as, you can just like, give yourself a foot massage, or, give yourself go into the fetal position, give yourself a hug I keep hitting my mic, if you're feeling really, sad. And I mean, I do think, if you are ready to explore, more of the sensual self-pleasure side of it, starting a self-pleasure practice in this time can be so beautiful and powerful, because you really have the time to get to know your own body, and just kind of play with it, and just like, stroke your hair and all the things that you want someone else to do for you. Just explore doing it for yourself. It might not, you might still be like, I just want it from someone else, which is fine. But just keeping it quite simple, really, and just recognizing that you can give yourself that love and affection that you really want from someone else. Doesn't mean it has to be that way forever, but
I think that's so key, what you said. So for people at home who may be living alone, it's a kind of time to experiment, right? To get to know their bodies a bit better. Because I think, and I'll be asking for your opinion a little bit here too, but I think when it comes to sexual relationships, when it involves, two people, for the most part, both people are probably worried about, I guess, pleasuring the other person or making sure the other person feels good, that they may not even know what they like themselves. And there can be a breakdown of communication in those situations. So what you're saying now is just a really good time to kind of find out what you like, so that if you do come in to a sensual or a sexual, environment with someone else, you're kind of more aware and more comfortable with, what you like, what you're about. Do you think that's, part of it, just getting a deeper understanding of kind of what gets you going, so that when you do come into a situation where you are involving other people, that you can explore that a bit freer as well?
absolutely. It makes such a difference. Like, it's made such a difference for me in my life. Like, and for me and for the other person, I think, because when you really know your body and what you like, and what feels good, and not just with sex, but also with it, like the emotional side of relationships too, I think is like really, really key. And it's a lot of what I focus on too. And just like learning to understand what you're feeling when, and how to really communicate that with someone that you're with, because that like, I think it really supports them as well, because they can't read our mind. And I think a lot of the time in relationship, people were really kind of like wondering what the other person thinks, but neither one really says it. So when you're able to really know what you're feeling and what you really want, like either in the bedroom or in any other thing, you can share that with your partner, and then that kind of encourages them and supports them in opening up and being vulnerable as well. And it just makes, like, in regards to sex, it really does just kind of opens up things a little bit more to be more kind of playful, and just like a genuinely connected experience where you're both kind of just having fun, and you're kind of sharing your desires, and it just there's not that mental block of, am I doing it right, and what does this person really want? Or if you're like, that doesn't really feel that good, but I don't know how to say that because I'm too afraid. And just learning to be like, can you do this? Or like, that, that doesn't feel good, can you change places or something like that? And it's like, it's such a simple thing, but it can be so terrifying to actually kind of speak up and do that. So
Yeah, I think that's so key, because I think, a lot of people listening can kind of relate to that, where suddenly if you start opening up about what you like doing or what you don't so much like, if you start voicing that and communicating that with your partner or whoever it may be, then suddenly they're like, wow, okay, this person's willing to open up a little bit. It's encouraging them to open up a little bit too. And I think, that will lead to a much better experience just in general, won't it?
totally, like when you give yourself permission to kind of be honest about how you're feeling and what you want, it gives other people the same. And then there's just like this openness, I think, and it just leaves so much room for that love and connection and the pleasure to be, because you kind of cut through all the other things, and it's just you guys there, or you and yourself, if it is that way, and then you just can experience it, and it's just a much easier experience and more fun, I think, is the key there. It's just because it is fun. And I think it can be so serious, I think, where really it's like, have fun with it and enjoy it.
No, I'm into that. That's really cool. And during this lockdown period, I understand that you're living alone as well. So as a love, sex and relationship coach and someone that's really keen, I guess, on the personal development, self-development side of things as well, is there anything you're doing differently during this time? Are you utilising this time in lockdown in a way that's encouraging you to develop more as a person? Is there anything in particular that you have been doing during this time to make the best use of it?
Well, I've been doing mostly what I do most days anyway, but just more. But yeah, I've still been doing all the practices that I like help my clients with, and that because they do really help me. And like I do my self-pleasure practices, and still doing my JD exercises, and really just a lot of it is also just like being there for myself and connecting with myself on that, like I speak kindly to myself, and kind of I've actually been pretty happy during lockdown, so there hasn't really been that many moments where I've had to kind of self-soothe my emotions. I've really made the most of just exploring new hobbies, and I've started painting, which I'm like now really in love with. And but yeah, just learning about things and doing all the practices and things that I sometimes like I still did them, but now I have even more time to do them, and I have felt pretty fine throughout the whole thing. So yeah.
Perfect. No, that sounds really cool. And I think it's important for people to utilize this time to a certain degree to kind of work out a little bit more about themselves and to more go internally, because there's so much happening externally right now. We've got obviously COVID-19 and stock prices and markets and this, and there's so much going on externally, and it can be hard to know, what to do. But I think people need to stop looking externally so much and start looking a bit more internally, because I think now that we've got more time to do that, I think it's a perfect opportunity to go more into that self-development, working on our confidence and just really investing more in ourselves.
And I think also just finding what really makes you happy. I think that's been something as well that I've been thinking about during this time, is like waking up in the morning, like what can I do today that is really just going to make me happy? And I think, COVID has actually been the lockdown has actually been maybe kind of inspiring in that way for people, because you kind of, when you aren't able to go to your job that you do every day, you kind of start thinking, what do I want to do today if I don't go to work? And I guess just finding what really brings you that joy and makes you feel that love for life. I think that's kind of really important. So, yeah.
Definitely, when we're talking about pleasure and happiness, like on a bigger scale, it's like, I don't think any of us really, well, I think some of us do, but a lot of us don't really think about what actually makes us happy, If we don't have to go to work, well, what do we do? What do we actually enjoy doing? So I think that's a really key point you make there, is waking up and thinking, for those of us that do have a bit more time, waking up and thinking, okay, like how do I actually want to spend my time? We've got less boundaries and constraints. If we're not working, how can we best utilize this time?
And I think even for the people that are still going to work, asking that question themselves too, like, what can I do to make myself happy today? That, like, do I love my job, and am I really doing what I want to be doing? And and even not even just the job, but just like the little things in life, like going for a walk or riding a bike or taking up something new or learning to sing or dance, or like just sometimes it's just the little things that just, I think it can be, I think a lot of like the feelings of sort of, I guess, being lost in life, and like I feel this myself sometimes, is really feeling like there's a certain way you have to do it, and like you have to have a good job, and like the job is your purpose, and your job is, and I still think that a job is really important, but I think just the way that you are in the world, honestly, is like the most important thing. Like if you are who you want to be and you're feeling that like joy and the love and just that like magic in life, I think then you're doing what you came here to do.
Man, I think that's one of the best things that's ever been said on this podcast, That is really cool, because And that's so true. Like we spend literally almost a third of our life working, right? 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So not quite a third of our week or our life or whatever. But yeah, we do spend so much of our time doing something that's obviously meant to pay the bills, but is it really fulfilling for a lot of people? You know, do people actually get happiness and joy when they wake up and think, okay, I've got to go to work? Do people really enjoy that? So I think, yeah, this is a prime time for people to think, okay, what do I actually want? Like, what is my purpose? You know, getting quite deep here, but thinking about the meaning of life a little bit more, because I think that's so important. And I think because of all the bullshit that life is kind of filled with, I think this has given us a really unique time in history to have a bit of space to think internally and to think about what we actually want to do here, you know?
Yeah, and I think it can be challenging as well because I think people have really good intentions behind that. It's like because they want to be doing something good in the world and like making a difference or something. But like for me personally, though, I'm learning that like the biggest differences that I make in my life honestly come from the little things that I do, like, you know, smiling at a person on the street or like making a loaf of bread for someone or like just really little things. And I think that like the biggest difference you can make is actually just like doing what you love and being a creature of love in the world, because then it just uplifts everyone around you. And like, I don't know, we are deep. It's great. I love this.
No, that's so powerful, Olivia. That's really cool. I'm glad you made that point. Um, if we can segue now more into the particular work you do, what kind of people do you work with? All types of people, or do you have like a specific kind of type of person that kind of comes to you?
I mean, I'm definitely open to everyone. I found it quite hard to really narrow it down because I think everybody can benefit from, well, I just love everyone really and would love to help everyone. But I guess I really do work with particularly women and couples at the moment. And especially with women, just really helping them kind of find that love and connection within themselves. And, you know, it's ages like 20 to 40 really is what I've been working with. And just women who really are wanting to feel like that wholeness within themselves, and or people who are in a relationship and they might feel insecure or it's not everything that they really want it to be, and just helping them really open up to that and like kind of soften into the vulnerability, because I think that's a really profound way of really feeling that love and the pleasure and just kind of having a relationship be all that it can be. So yeah, singles and people in relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So my next question is for anyone listening or watching this podcast who thinks, damn, you know, like maybe it would be quite good to talk to someone like yourself who's qualified, but, you know, it's still that fear of, you know, talking to a love or relationship or sex coach, you know, what exactly does that involve? But, you know, there's probably people that are curious and probably think, yeah, I could actually really benefit from this. And as you said, it's not just about the sexual side of things, but it's that energy that could be suppressed that could actually make a huge difference in other areas of your life as well. So for anyone watching or listening to this podcast who feels like they could benefit from some coaching, what exactly can they expect from you?
I think a key thing to realize is that a lot of what I do is it's never any like explicit sexuality stuff. Like we don't. I mostly work with helping people find their own. Well, find or connect with their own emotions essentially around what they're experiencing in their sex life or in their relationships or just in life, and really helping them understand it and like find their own wisdom and truth within themselves, so then they can sort of heal it and transmute it and start experiencing the things they want to experience. So a lot of it is really just connecting you back to your body and your emotions, and helping you become your own guru really. And then, you know, as the journey progresses, like it does become more of like really helping you learn like how to explore your body and how to heal that shame and the insecurity through, you know, working with your brain and your body and kind of making it real on the subconscious and conscious level, so it's really like stays and it becomes your new reality. And yeah, I work with a bunch of different practices and tools. So, and it's always working with what people are comfortable with. So if people really want to, like I work with the jade egg as well in my work, and that is going more into the sexual side of things where, you can really start to explore self-pleasure and how to use the jade egg and all that kind of stuff. So it really is what people are ready for and comfortable with, but it's always just very gentle, and I always try and make it fun too, and like focusing on your desires rather than what's really going wrong. Essentially, we kind of see the bigger vision for what you really want, and then we just, try and get you there and help you love yourself along the way.
Cool. I think, that's really, really cool. And I think the key message people need to get from what you just said is that it's completely up to what they're comfortable with. People don't just think, I'm seeing a sex therapist, like they're going to ask me to masturbate in front of them or something, exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't.
It's completely up to the individual and what they feel comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like most of the things that people experience, like if they're having trouble in their sex life, a lot of that is emotional. Like the source of it is often sort of an emotional or a past trauma or something. So that's often what we really work with, is sort of the unconscious and the subconscious, which can be like the parts that we don't understand but that affects us. So that's what I really help with.
Yeah, no, that's key. That's awesome. So with people that you have worked with, what kind of breakthroughs have you kind of seen in people?
It's honestly so beautiful, like just witnessing people's sort of like eye-opening revelations of that they are the source of their own love, and like how beautiful they are. And like just I think the most beautiful breakthroughs I see are when people sort of, they're going through something really tough, and then all of a sudden, you guide them through a process and they're like, oh my God, like all I ever wanted was this from myself. And then like learning to give that to themselves, and then from there they're like, wow, I feel so much more ready to actually be in a relationship, and like I have so much more love to give. And I think as well, just people feeling that sense of, it's like the women that have come to me, it's been kind of a and this is how I was, like really searching for something outside, like wanting to be more confident in the bedroom, or be with someone that was like have a really beautiful relationship, and like they feel like something's missing in the meantime. And then just working with them, they're like, wow, like I'm really cool and I have so much like joy in my body and love, and it just makes the world seem more beautiful, I think.
That is so awesome. I think that's really, really cool. And it's certainly a recurring theme in this podcast. If you haven't picked up from it already, it's like, stop looking externally, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us place so much importance on what people think about us and what's considered normal or whatever, And a lot of us don't think enough about looking internally. So, and what you said is key as well. Like, you are your own guru, You might go to someone like you for help, which is perfect because you help to unlock that with people. But in the end, and I remember we talked about this yesterday, is that we kind of all have the answers within, And without that sounding too wishy-washy, like just meditate and think about that for a second, I think all of us do hold the answers within, but we're just too busy chasing external factors that we don't place enough emphasis on that.
Yeah, and we haven't really been taught to trust ourselves either. Like it is a kind of learning to trust yourself and your intuition and what you're feeling and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. I've got kind of one more question for you, Olivia, and this is kind of tying into how we can help people who are listening and watching this. If they find themselves in a position where they might be lacking confidence in a certain area of their life, or they're not happy with their relationship, obviously I think it's great if they can seek out yourself to get that kind of one-on-one help, because I think it's so important. But, if you could give people just one tip to kind of start their healing journey. I mean, this is a really broad question and it obviously depends on the situation, but is there like one kind of tip you can give people to kind of start that journey of more self-reflection and looking more internally as opposed to externally?
That is kind of a hard question. But I think like what we've been saying about, really coming back to yourself and I think one of the key steps is just realizing like what is it really that you are wanting, and like if something's going wrong, like rather than looking at that for a minute, just like coming to you and your heart really, and being like, what do I really want right now? Like I get that maybe things aren't how I want them to be. How do I want them to be? And then I think once you understand that, like that in itself can be really kind of liberating because you kind of can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then from there it's really just like having compassion for yourself and whatever you're going through, and just realizing that you do have the answers and it can be different. And yeah, I think just learning to listen to the emotions and the feelings that you feel in your body, and just understanding them really, and just really listening to yourself, I think. And like that really includes listening to your body. That was kind of more than one tip, and I don't know if it was really a tip, but
No, that's really cool. I think that's a really great note to end on, the fact that we all need to, we aren't preaching this. This is something that, I've been doing a lot of self and personal development lately, and we've been talking about what you've been doing as well. I think it's so important to start asking exactly what you're saying, what do we really want, What are we kind of seeking? What makes us happy? Because if we don't ask those questions, then how do we know what makes us happy, And that's
Absolutely.
something that can be applied to any area of life, not just your sexuality, but everything. If you can start thinking about what actually makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, and just asking yourself, doing a lot of self-reflection. This is something that, I guess not enough people do, because it's kind of seemed as weird, if you sit in the field and meditate or whatever, but I think it's something that people need to realize is extremely powerful and huge in order to grow as humans,
yeah, totally. And like meditation, like my meditation honestly mostly looks like me. Well, I probably shouldn't call it meditation then, but for example, if I get like upset about something, triggered by something, I just immediately I'm like, close my eyes. I'm like, okay, what am I feeling? Like, what's going on? I kind of treat myself like I'm my own mother. I'm like, what's the matter? Like, talk to me. What do you want? What do you need? And like that for me is my meditation. It's just like listening to my body and my feelings, and then being like, okay, can I give that to myself? And doing what I can for myself, and then also recognizing that it's still beautiful to want that with someone else and from someone else, kind of thing. So meditation doesn't always have to look like, you know, all zen.
Yeah. Kind of bit of like, yeah, exactly. It can simply be.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
No, 100%, exactly. Everyone does it in their own personal way, but that's the key point. That self-reflection, right? And like you said, if you feel anger coming on, or stress or anxiety, because stress and anxiety are two big ones for people as well, something that a lot of us feel, and a lot of us feel pretty hard at times too. And I think that's a key thing, taking time to think, why do I feel stressed? How can I deal with it? First addressing that you are feeling stressed, and then thinking, okay, well, if I am feeling stressed, what exactly is it? What can we pinpoint exactly what's making me feel this way? How can we overcome that? How can we work with it? Because it's not something that anyone should have to live with. And, without going on too much of a tangent here, mental health is obviously a huge, part of society as well. And the fact that I think we do just need to become a bit more open and accepting, and reflection, self-reflection on how we are feeling.
Absolutely. And I think like that anxiety and stress thing, I think it just it becomes quite challenging when you do live in a world where there is so much going on, and like to survive, a lot of people have to just work constantly, and they hardly have the time to really even look at their own emotions, and so it all just kind of gets pushed down, and then it just kind of is there constantly. So yeah.
Yep, definitely. Yep. Everyone watching, listening, if there's anything you can take away from this podcast, it's take some time out from everything, take some time out for yourself, do a bit of self-reflection, and start to ask yourself these questions. I think, that would be a good takeaway for people.
And give yourself some love.
Yeah, give yourself some love. There you go, you heard it from Olivia. Give yourself some loving. Perfect, Olivia. And just before we go, if people want to get in touch with you, I seriously recommend that if anyone is feeling, a bit of a gap in their lives, or they feel like they need some help, I'd seriously recommend talking to Olivia. So Olivia, what's kind of the best way people can get hold of you?
I think on my website is the best because it has more information about what I do, and you can see reviews from other clients, and there's a contact page and my email. I do have social media. I'm not overly active on social media just because it doesn't make me happy, and I wouldn't be living my truth if I was doing it. So, but I am at Hay_Olive on Instagram, and that has a link to my website. And yeah, my website is olivia-hay.com, and there's more info there. So, yeah.
Awesome, Olivia. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.
It's been really cool. Awesome, team. So make sure if you do feel like you need a bit of assistance there, or are just curious to find out more about Olivia, make sure you check out her website. I'd seriously recommend it to anyone just out of interest, just to see the kind of work Olivia does and the kind of real breakthroughs that literally change people's lives. So make sure you check that out. And for any more Kaizen Fitness content, make sure you check out our website at www.kaizenfitness.co.nz, and we are on Facebook and Instagram underneath the handle at Kaizen Fitness NZ. So we're coming to the end of the podcast now, but just remember, guys, take some time out for yourselves, do a little bit of self-reflection, do a bit of self-loving. I think it's all extremely powerful, positive stuff, and it's not something that we do enough. So make sure you take the time out to do it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. Now, it's time for you to take action.